Hi everyone, in this video I'm going to explain what GDP is, why economists use it to compare different countries, and why GDP doesn't always reflect how the average person is actually living. What is GDP? GDP stands for Gross Domestic Product. It measures the total value of all final goods and services produced within a country in 1 year. This includes things like food, housing, healthcare, education services, and transportation. So essentially, GDP tells us how much a country is producing and selling in its economy. Why is GDP useful? Economists use GDP because it is standardized and consistent measure. Every country calculates it in roughly the same way, which makes it useful for comparing economic size or growth within countries. However, countries have a very different population size, so economists use GDP per capita, which is GDP divided by population. GDP per capita represents the average economic output per person. Because higher GDP per capita usually means more goods and services are available, it's often used as a rough indicator of standard of living. But this is where the problems start. GDP per capita is an average, and averages don't tell us how an income is actually shared among people. Let's look at real life. South Africa. In this graph, the color bar shows GDP per capita. At first glance, this suggests South Africa is a middle-income country and that people are doing reasonably well on average. But the shorter bar shows medium income, which reflects what the typical person earns. The large gap between these two bars exists because South Africa has a very high income inequality. The relatively small group of people earns a large share of the country's income, which raises the average. Meanwhile, many residents face low wages, unemployment, and limited access to services. Because of this inequality, GDP per capita overstates the standard of living for the typical resident. The economy may look strong on paper, even though many people are struggling in daily life. So while GDP is useful for comparing economies, it doesn't fully capture how people actually live. To understand real living standards, we also need to consider income distribution, access to services, and quality of life. Thank you so much for watching. If you have any questions, comment down below.